Okay.
Okay. All right, so we always start with the review of minutes from June. Anybody have any changes to the minutes,
They
objections,
look good
changes?
to me.
Good. All right, so they stand as as submitted. The comp report, Anna, you're going to handle this.
Sorry, did not realize I was muted. Yes, I will go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everybody see the board report?
Yes.
Okay, so for the month of June 2025, which was our final month for FY25, our top spending category for crime was homicide at $18,116.49, followed by domestic assault at $9,725.16, and then followed by aggravated assault at $1,684.57. We made a total of 53 payments on 32 claims, totaling $31,775.36 for the month. And for the sexual assault program, 9 payments were paid on 6 claims for a total of $7,786.83. Total for both programs for the month of June was $39,562.19. So cash disbursements by expense type. So highest category for the month of June was funeral at $12,025. And that was followed by counseling at 4,100. No, I'm sorry. Loss of wages at $5,714.19. And then counseling at 4,149. For the sexual assault program, for counseling, we spent $548.05. Follow-up appointments, $505.20, and the initial exam was $6,733.58. So I'm sorry, what? Oh, did someone have a question?
I think so.
Okay. All right. So for FY 2025, our top spending category was homicide at $110,623.38. And that was followed by domestic assault at $100,840.93. And that was followed by aggravated assault at $66,390.73. So comp for the total of FY25, we made 616 payments on 208 claims, totaling $367,681.71, slightly less than last year at $416,125. For the sexual assault program, 102 payments were made on 44 claims, totaling $76,837.62. Total for both programs was $444,519.33, less than was spent last year at over $500,000. So for cash disbursements by expense type, it looks like funeral was our top spending category at $70,698.38. And that was followed by rent and relocation at $47,810.19. And then, oh no, I'm sorry. I got my numbers mixed up. It was medical facility and then rent and relocation, followed by lost wages. I'm sorry, guys. It's Monday. I'm still a little half asleep over here. For sexual assault program, for the total of FY25, we spent $7,726.10 on counseling, $2,398.40 on follow-up appointments, $6,775.75 on the HIV prophylaxis, and the initial sexual assault exam was the top spending category for the sexual assault program, and that was at $59,937.37. Sorry if that was a little fast. Do you have any questions?
So I do have a question.
Sure.
If you can slide over just a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the total number of claims paid.
Yes.
On the left-hand column,
Hmm.
It says 208 claims paid for the year.
Yes.
In the right-hand column, it says 327. The dollar numbers are the same. The total payments are the same.
So Jody explained this to me. This can occur when there are multiple payments made on the same claim. Jody, could you clarify? We spoke about this before, but now I'm slightly forgetting what we said. Um, um, just a second. Or was it Maria or Christine? I spoke to somebody about this, and now I can't remember why the reasoning is for why the numbers can be different. Oh, Christine, you're muted.
Sorry about that. It was not me, but
Oh,
you're
okay.
absolutely correct in
Okay.
that you can pay one claim multiple times, but each payment counts.
Okay. Yeah, so that's why there would be a difference per category on the amount of claims paid.
Okay,
All right.
right. That's fine. Thank you for explaining that to me.
Yep.
So I don't know if anybody else caught that, but the numbers were the same. Everything worked,
Mhm.
but I just didn't understand the difference. Thank you.
Like, so for example, if it was a funeral category, you could have several expenses on the same claim for the funeral expense, depending on like if you were paying for cremation or ceremony or flowers. Those would all fall under funeral, but they would all be separate expenses.
Got it.
Okay.
Of course. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So moving on to claims by county. So for the month of June, we received 3 claims from Addison, 2 from Bennington, 10 from Chittenden, 2 from Franklin, 1 from Orange, 5 from Orleans, 6 from Rutland, 3 from Washington, 3 from Wyndham, and 1 from Windsor for 36 total. We did not receive any claims from Caledonia, Essex, Lamoille, or Grand Isle. So for the month of June of 2025, we received 36 claims in comparison to 38 of June of last year for a 5.26% decrease, but still pretty consistent in numbers. So year to date, we have received 418 claims in comparison to last year at 457 for an 8.53% decrease. The sexual assault program has remained very consistent. We received 15 claims for the month of June in comparison to 17 last year for 11.76% difference. And then year to date, we received 215 sexual assault claims in comparison to the 219 we received last year for a 1.82% decrease. And those are our totals. Month of June, 36 claims, total 417 for FY25. So we definitely had a dip. We were receiving less, but for the past several months, the amount of claims receiving has remained pretty consistent.
And there is an error because it's
Oh.
418, not 417.
Oh.
When I was looking into it, I believe it was in March. We
Oh,
had
okay.
one that got moved, but
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to look at these before the meeting, so I
Okay.
apologize for
No
that. That's
problem. Well,
on me.
nope, I can certainly go through and fix that. So my mistake. So sorry, 418. Any questions about the board report?
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome.
So I have a question.
Sure.
I know I've asked this before. Maybe it's anyways, a Christine question, but when you get the sexual, like assault examiner information or, DV information, and do you know if there's a breakdown between, let's say it comes from the state's attorney's office victim advocate or the nonprofit victim advocate? Because it can come from the nonprofit victim advocate, let's say with HopeWorks or STEPS, because let's say they either go off board, there was a conviction, there was a probable cause found, but the victim survivor goes off board and they're not working with the prosecution, or the relationship with the state's attorney's victim advocate is not as is, let's say, they choose to be working with a nonprofit victim advocate, even though there is a probable cause happening and in court. So do you have breakdowns of that? Like which ones come from nonprofits? So it might be an interesting stat and which ones come from the state's attorney's office. 'Cause
Oh,
they do
I
come from.
apologize.
Mhm.
So we definitely do
Goodness.
get applicants that come from STEPS or other places. Normally, they'll be included. Either they'll reach out to us via email or there'll be like a message on a fax cover page. But no, we don't have a breakdown in the system of whether or not the person, because it's by county, and so typically it will be their state's attorney's victim advocate that's represented in the system.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see the breakdown of those who are working with nonprofits.
Yeah.
Right
Just
now,
FYI.
they're both counted as advocates in our
Mhm.
system, whether it's somebody who's a SAVA or a nonprofit one. If you'd
Mhm.
like, we can start trying to track that offline if you'd like.
No, that's okay.
No?
Thank you. I
Okay.
was just curious, because it comes in through different
Yes.
gateways to you guys, and it'd just be interesting to know, So
Yes.
thank you.
Anything else for Anna or Christine on this? If not, thank you both.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Who's going to lead the discussion about eligibility of grandchildren?
That would be me.
Okay, right.
The reason that I'm bringing this to you is my understanding is that the way it works right now, if we have a grandchild, we're supposed to poll you folks. And then you decide whether or not somebody is eligible. Is that correct? That's how I understand it. It's happening. Grandparents are eligible, grandchildren are not listed as a victim. So that's always the issue that we have. The reason this came to my attention was I had a specialist who was claiming two homicide survivors as denied because they were grandchildren and we hadn't brought them yet to the board because they didn't have any expenses. So in that case, I pulled it before the letter went out, but I can only imagine what that would have been like to get a denial on a grandchild. You're a grandchild and there's one grandchild who was approved because they had expenses and the other two did not ask for anything and they were coming up as denied. So
What do you-
what
what do you
I
mean?
was hoping, go ahead.
What do you mean coming up as denied? What does that mean?
After a certain amount of time, when we haven't had any movement on the claim, they haven't submitted anything, we will make a determination as to a no loss. That's if it's eligible. But if it's not eligible, our categories are denied, or there's denied, like denied by the board, but there's denied ineligible, not a listed victim. So I would like to avoid that in the future. And we can do that by immediately polling you folks, or I was hoping you could say from this day forward, grandchildren are now eligible. But I don't know. As far as I know, you can do that because you have discretion. And obviously, I was not part of the original discussion. And my understanding was something about that some grandchildren do not have good relationships with their grandparent. And in that case, the grandparent wouldn't have a great relationship with the grandchild, but the grandparent would automatically be eligible. Jody, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to say, are you asking? I guess my question is, why aren't those claims being brought to the board for eligibility at this time?
They could be, and we kind of are. But what I was hoping to do was to make it so that we didn't have to go through the board every time there's a grandchild.
And I guess the board has been the past couple of years going by the state statute, and because
Correct.
grandchildren are not listed in the statute as being an eligible victim for a homicide survivor, this is why the question is coming up before the board.
So, my first question to Bob would be, Bob, do you think that as the board, you have the ability to make a determination that all grandchildren from this day forward would automatically be eligible under this category? Or would you prefer us to automatically bring all grandchildren to the board?
Well, they're not listed in the statute, but is there sort of a,
Correct.
Jen, maybe you know this, does
Yeah.
it say any other person?
Yep,
Oh, it does.
yes, there's other, and so I think what Christine is hoping is that we could avoid delaying the claims that are submitted by grandchildren, and not put those on hold. That
Yeah,
we consider them as, that the board would consider them as other, and
or
So-
other survivor who may suffer severe emotional harm as a result of the victim's death as determined on a case-by-case basis with
But
the
we've-
discretion of the board.
We have said we would do an email poll if there's not an upcoming board meeting, so that way those applications are processed sooner, so there's not a delay.
And I think Maria has her hand up also.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, so the claims in question are mine. And it was my understanding that in order for the board to be polled, we needed each survivor to provide us with a brief summary of their relationship with the deceased. Once that summary was received, then we would follow up polling the board for an eligibility determination. Excuse me. In these specific cases, I had made multiple attempts to these surviving grandchildren to confirm what the relationship was with the deceased, and I had not been successful in getting that description from them or that summary from them. So I had submitted them as a denial in that essence that I felt I didn't have the information to poll the board based on our current process. So that was why it was submitted as a quotation marks denial, but should they have provided that summary, we could have polled the board sooner. We just hadn't gotten that information to this point.
And we still don't have it.
Correct.
But the statute seems to require something, right? If you are the
No.
other. The
It just says other
requires
survivor who
some-
may suffer severe emotional harm as a result of the victim's death as determined on a case-by-case basis by the board.
But how do you determine that? You need to
Well,
get the
for
information.
me,
that's
the
in
reason
your-
that I was hoping we could avoid is because it feels like a complete oversight. Why would you say grandparents are eligible and not grandchildren? It just, to my little brain, it does not make sense. I cut you off, Bob. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, because of the idiots that wrote the statute. Guilty.
Shush, we're recording.
Susan and Sue, what do you guys think about this?
Christine, is it that your unit would like more discretion as far as deciding versus coming to the board? Or
I
if
think
there's
it's-
something questionable, let's say you come across this grandchild has absolutely no relationship and we've left you with that discretion, and then you come to the board anyways, could you do that and say, hey, listen, I think this is like, this grandchild did not have any relationship? Or do you guys want that discretion for your unit and not to be brought to us?
Jen has her hand up, so I'm going to pass it to her, but I'm pretty sure she's going to say the same thing I was going to say.
oh, well, then I'll let you go.
Oh, no, you go. You're the ED.
I'm uncomfortable with us getting into a place where we're assessing the quality of relationships. For me, I feel a grandchild, I would love to see it just be, they should be considered. Obviously I'm very sympathetic to the case that generated this question. I think it's challenging to ask people when they've had their person killed, especially in this case in such an atrocious manner, to then have to describe the value of that relationship to them in their life. So I completely support the direction that Christine's going, and I would really be uncomfortable with us evaluating what we think is a worthy relationship and a not a worthy relationship.
And I don't want to make that judgment about relationships. I would make a motion that we approve grandchildren.
Okay, I second.
Any more discussion?
I would just
Christine?
ask if that also applies to grandchildren that are born after the date of death? Ones who would not have a relationship with the deceased?
Hmm.
Good question.
I guess I would say yes, because they still have lost, whether they knew them or not, they've still lost that person. I would say yes, it does still apply to them.
And the reality is, if that were the situation and the person were seeking expenses, for example, I'm thinking counseling, they would still have to have a treatment plan that would speak to the fact that they were being treated for that loss. So
Correct.
I guess I'm not afraid of it being super expansive in that situation.
Okay.
Okay, I agree.
Anything else? Okay, I think we all agree. We should do this. Yeah,
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for bringing the issue to us. Michelle,
Good afternoon. Okay, let's see. So you should be seeing the board report for the restitution unit. So as you can see, for the month of June, we brought in a total of $54,246. So that meant we exceeded our monthly goal by just over 6,200. Year-to-date goal, we exceeded by $141,970. And year to date, we collected just over 100, sorry, not 100, $1,009,000. So that's only the fifth time since we started collecting restitution that we've hit over $1 million, and the first time since 2019. So I think it was great. Our staff went out to eat as a little celebration. So we were very excited to hit that mark and feeling like we're finally getting back to like pre-pandemic numbers. With what we're bringing in for money. So it took some time, but we're finally getting there. So that was really nice, a way to end the fiscal year. We're still bringing in some tax money. So we got about 6,600 in tax money last month. And then if you look at what we paid out, so in June, we paid out a total of $22,595. That's what we advanced from the fund. That compares to just 18,694 last year. Year to date, we're at 314,000. Last year for the fiscal year, we were at 241,000. So that really, again, speaks to the numbers kind of just going up for the number of new orders we're getting to individuals as well, and like just being able to advance some more to them. So a total, if you total up all of these payments we sent out to victims last fiscal year 2025, it totaled $1,066,000 that we sent out. So pretty even to what we brought in. A little bit more went out than what we brought in, but overall, again, some really great numbers. In June, we sent out a total of 347 payments to victims. That was a little bit higher than a typical month where we're usually around 200. And that's just because Gina and Shannon were trying to get some of those stragglers paid before the end of the fiscal year. So that number is a little bit higher than we normally would see in any given month. Total of 3,021 payments were sent out to victims for the whole fiscal year, which again is pretty much on par with what we've seen in the past. I had another number somewhere. 127,000 of what we paid out went to state agencies. Again, that's pretty much on par. So we tend to pay them on a quarterly basis. And then let's see what else. Lottery winnings, we were at we received $6,550.16 for the year. So that's always like a hit or miss. It depends. Last year we were about twice that. So it really just depends on who's playing, who's winning, and if they owe restitution. Again, we generally see our largest chunk of money around Christmas time when people are getting them in like stocking stuffers or holiday parties, that sort of thing. Any questions with any of those numbers?
Looks like good work.
Thank you. Okay, I'll share the RJO report. Okay, so in June, we received a total of 81 new orders. Again, we're definitely seeing a good chunk of those being businesses with 56, and then individuals, victims being 23. Chittenden County had the highest number of orders with 20, followed by Rutland, and then close behind by Washington. No surprise, Essex and Grand Isle didn't have any new orders. Washington County, like they tend to be, again, hit or miss. So 13 is a pretty high number for them. They usually tend to be between 6 and like 9 or 10. But otherwise, everything's sort of as we would expect. It seems like 80-ish is like the new normal for orders. We got 130 last month, but that was pretty high. But 81 has been where we've pretty much been for the last few months, other than last month. So for the whole fiscal year, we received 1,193 orders. So again, those numbers are looking pretty much like they were pre-pandemic as well. So again, just all across the board, we're kind of seeing things return to what used to be the normal. Any questions with that? Great. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
congrats.
Thank you.
So Jen, now that the legislature is gone and you've had time to do other real work, what's new?
Oh, well, I'm trying to, reintroduce myself to my kids. So done a lot of that. And Michelle she just walked away, but she didn't mention some of the work that her unit's been doing. Oh, there she is, with some other stakeholders. And I wanted to make sure that she had a chance to talk about, we're trying to play catch up with all the new laws, speaking of which, and new pilots. And so Michelle's been in her team, and I have been checking in with folks.
Yeah, so we just met with, my goodness, I'm spacing on her name, Lisa.
Yes.
What's her exact title?
She's the director of animal welfare at Public Safety.
Yeah, so we met with her last week just to kind of, learn a little bit more about what she'll be doing, and how her role will sort of intersect with restitution and sort of the possibilities with restitution and ordering. But she's fascinating. She comes from Georgia, has been doing this type of work down there. So we had a really great meeting with her. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what will happen with her new role and what that will mean for restitution moving forward. We also talked to Sarah George about a new pilot project they have there in Chittenden County. And then again, Initiative for Success. Is that what it's called? Something like that.
Something like that.
Incentives for
Innovations
Success.
or, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so it's a way for individuals who basically are like homeless, struggling with addiction, sort of those repeat retail theft individuals to work with somebody to sort of do some counseling. And the incentive is that once they complete the program, so if it's 6 to 12 weeks, if they're successful in completing, they don't get convicted on the charges. And during that time, whenever they meet with their counselor, their worker, they get a small chunk of money to do that. And so the idea is that while they're in the program, their hope is that they are not reoffending. What we have found with a few cases that we know of is as soon as they're not in the program, they are. But as Sarah said, at least if you can, for a short time, give them an incentive to stop them from reoffending during that time period, it's somewhat successful. It sounds like they only have a small grant, so they're not sure if it will continue or not at this point. But but we sent them a copy of our MOU and repayment agreement that we have with Diversion, because what we were finding is at least one case restitution was not being ordered to the victims, who tend to be larger businesses to some extent. Like one was a bank, other small stores. So we just want to make sure that if there is in fact restitution, that there's a way for us to be involved and to be able to collect that on behalf of the victims.
It'll be interesting to see it. Well, hopefully they're tracking, they probably are because it's funded, and to see if there's any type of lowering of the recidivism or, that would be interesting. And also what law enforcement's view is on this, the police, because, on the front lines, they do a lot of work and then it goes in and then the person gets the charge, dismissed, and then they're back out without the structure.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, and again, unfortunately, it's such a limited funding that to basically they made it sound like, unless there was a miracle, like it probably wouldn't
Yeah.
continue. So,
Right.
I mean, it's an interesting idea, and again, I think you have to take those successes, even if they're small, and like just for a short time period. Like if businesses aren't getting broken or stolen from every single day by the same person, that feels like a success to some extent. I'm sure the
6
business
weeks.
owners would agree.
12 weeks or 3.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a great idea. It'd be interesting to see the stats after.
Yeah, and we're hoping to reach out to Jenna's Promise. Well, we've reached out. We're hoping to do, go there, chat with them, learn a little bit about their program, and just work on, release of information. So if people are there at Jenna's Promise and they're working, that we can get that information and maybe get them on payment arrangements while they're, again, working with somebody who can like help them with budgeting and like how do you have this conversation about restitution? How do you figure out what you can afford, and how do you have those conversations if you can't? Like, so many of our offenders just ignore us if they can't pay versus, having a conversation with us. So we're hoping to do that this month, just do a little field trip there to Jenna's Promise. Again, sort of see what they have to offer and meet with their staff.
It's great.
Is there anything else, Jen, that I've missed? I feel like we've been busy with different things.
Yeah, so that's the challenge is every time, and especially the legislature likes to tinker with things and come up with these pre-charge things, and it's circumventing the usual process, so it creates challenges for our team to try and keep up with that and make sure that no matter what does take place in terms of reforms, that victims are being made as whole as possible, at least in terms of their financial losses. So we got to be nimble.
Right. Yes.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah.
So yes, the legislature is done. Have my wrap up with staff next week, and I'll send on a copy to all of you and to Mel to share about what happened this year. Yes, it's done, but it's not really done because we're on a bunch of more work groups. One of the main ones is a victim notification work group that I've been banging the drum on to try and improve, especially the post-conviction notification for victims through the automated system. So I'm going to be chairing that group. So I'm very excited. We now have a seat on the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Commission, which we didn't before. Megan is going to be representing the center on another group, the fire. I don't even know what the official name is, but it's focused on the firearms and storage and seizure of firearms and that whole process. So that's a pretty large group that Megan's going to represent us on, and a lot of interesting folks are going to be on that to have a conversation. And we are I think on some other group, I forgot. But so yeah, we've got more work to do in the off session. But that's good. It's it's always good that people want to make space for the center at the table. We are hiring for 2 positions, both to fill Christine's position when she was the grant specialist here, who primarily works with Carol. So we need that position to be filled, as well as the grants manager position, because Jean, as you I think all know, is retiring as of August 4th. So we are, I don't know if you got the information yet, but we're having a retirement party for her at Bar Hill in Montpelier on August 6th. So if that hasn't gotten to you, we'll make sure you all know. But she's retiring, and so yeah, we need some help fast, because it's going to be back to just the Carol and Megan show to do, you know, all of this work. So we put something in Digger, and Indeed, I think Julie does all of those pieces, but I've started seeing a couple of different resumes that are, you know, worth reviewing. And we had another go around with the Office of the Inspector General. So they came out for a mini, I guess, a pre-audit. We just went through this process last year, but it was with a different arm of the federal government. So talk about Doge land, or how we're wasting money. It's now we have to meet with another group of feds about similar issues. This one is thankfully a little bit more focused on our subgrantees, and they have named one particular subgrantee they want to dig deeper into looking at. Not for any particular reason. I think they're just randomly targeting them, but you know, it's always stressful when auditors come to town. So that's started again by a different group. Also, the AG's office is going to be joining in a lawsuit that was originally filed by Rhode Island Attorney General's office, challenging the grant assurances that are a part of the Violence Against Women Act pieces that were developed by the administration that are required to be agreed to in order to receive grant funding. So we think we did sign a slightly modified version of the assurances, because we believe that all of our subgrantees will be able to comply. And our subgrantees were saying we don't want to have any red flags, but it's troubling because a lot of the terms are really nebulous and not defined well. So we did that old legal thing, Bob, that you'll like it to the best of our knowledge and belief, so that we're not locked into trying to figure out what they really mean. So that'll be interesting to watch. So far, again, we haven't gotten hit with any of the issues that you're hearing about in terms of funds being rescinded by the federal government. So we're just going to cross our fingers and hope that everything goes through and remains as it is. And then we're just going to start the you know, looking for the devil in those details of the strategic plan. You all saw that plan last month, and now it's just about identifying those, you know, different work plans. So that will be will be an additional challenge. Kim is going to continue to help us with that, which I really greatly appreciate. And you know, once we come up with that, we can sort of start to check off the list. The whole CCBS team did a great job already of kind of identifying those pieces. So I think it's really just taking the work that's already happened, putting it on paper so people can see what has already happened, and then seeing what we need to flesh out, if anything. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I've been enjoying seeing my kids again. So that's been nice, and had 2 graduations. My second goes on to college next year, and my third goes on to high school, and birthday parties and all kind of good stuff going on. So yeah, get to be a human.
Great. Thank you. Mel, I assume we have no visitors or guests.
That is correct. So I will stop the recording, and we're done with that part of the meeting. Let me just get this turned off.
So now we have 2 cases to decide.
Hold on I'm sorry, I'm having Oh gosh, here we go.